Hello and welcome to Niaga Spotlight with me, Tamina Kauji. Niaga Spotlight goes through the week in business and future affairs. Market watch, industries, analysis and insights, we've got you covered right here on Niaga Spotlight. Now, for this week's analysis, we take a look at elevating Malaysia's green jobs via skills development. With ESG standards becoming mainstream, investment into ESG and sustainable finances also increased exponentially. Now, according to a December 2021 report by advisory firm PricewaterhouseCoopers, currently 94% of the top 50 Malaysian public limited companies or PLCs have ESG plans. Green jobs and corporate climate pledges are clearly the latest buzz in all of Malaysia's major industries, but fact remains that skilled ESG professionals remain scarce, which makes it essential to focus on strategies for rapidly upskilling professionals with ESG competencies to meet this demand. I spoke with Raghav Gupta, Managing Director, India and Asia Pacific Coursera, about Malaysia's opportunities for green jobs via skills development. Let's watch. Raghav, thanks so much for making the time to join us all the way from India. Now, Raghav, there's a clear ESG skills shortage, but with hiring demand for such roles, it's time for organizations to seriously relook talent strategy. In your opinion, what are some essential skills for ESG, sustainability, the entire green job market?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Tamina. And like you said, I think we are seeing a big focus from organizations, both companies and businesses, thinking about ESG skills. There's a lot more that needs to happen when it comes to skill building. But to your question around what are some of the essential skills, this is based on a recent report which talks about three broad skills: environment and social governance itself, carbon footprint management, and also sustainable business strategies. These are skills specific to ESG. At the same time, I'd like to call out that skills around data analytics, skills around communication, skills around stakeholder management related to ESG continue to be important, because as you work in this relatively new field of ESG, you do need to take people along and communicate what the requirements are. So those are important skills as well related to ESG.
Absolutely. I think you make a great point there about communicating to the board as well as the stakeholders. With that in mind, so how can collaboration between industry and education offer inclusivity that actually answers organizational ESG goals and skills gap, especially in Malaysia's corporate boardrooms? Now, this has become quite a buzz phrase, especially over the pandemic and as we've opened up and of course gone back to life as it was pretty much. But business per se has not. The focus continues to be on ESG as well as stakeholders' interest in this.
I think one of the interesting things which is driving all of this is the sustainability reporting requirements for listed companies from Bursa Malaysia. I think that's been a big, booster to all of this. And also what's been interesting is they've gone beyond sustainability reporting to say, look, we can help you with the training, with the consultation, with the best practices to improve your ESG performance. I think there are three institutions or organizations that have a large role to play when it comes to building ESG skills within the country. The government, businesses themselves, and also universities and higher education. There's actually a study out by Google and The Economist, and it looks at what is the role of government funding when it comes to incentivizing citizens to build skills related to ESG. And actually just the fact that the government might fund these because of the importance of these skills and also might provide the learning opportunities for citizens is a key factor here. Businesses, before it comes to skilling, I think we've seen around the world over the last many years that employees want to learn those skills which are relevant for the business. So if the board, if the CEO is saying, look, ESG is important for us, climate change is important for us, and so as an employee in the company, you should be building skills, whether these be around literacy level, just understanding what ESG might mean, or you might be an ESG professional having deep impact on the strategy of the company. So depending on that, but I think for businesses to create a culture to facilitate building of these skills is very important. And only after that can a structured plan be put into place. And we've also seen, and this is still to happen, Tamina, but I think universities are increasingly thinking about how do they start bringing ESG skills into curricula as well. So, you might be studying engineering or you might be studying management, but how do you start to understand and learn some of these skills while on campus?
Absolutely. I think you make some very interesting points there, especially about how there does seem to be an effort from particularly private sector universities to try and integrate the entire ecosystem for a whole of society approach, so that in general, university graduates across the board are not going to be unfamiliar with the entire ESG related arena. Now, passing the net a little wider and further, Raghav, how can Malaysia address the green talent gap and skill mismatch, especially to cater to not just our fairly comparatively small local market, but also ESG competencies in the broader APAC region?
I think it starts with firstly appreciating that there is a limited investment that has happened in ESG related education, both for students and for working professional and employees. I think it starts with that. I think a point which also is helpful to understand is, within Malaysia, but also in the region, if you look at ESG related roles across Southeast Asia and ASEAN, most roles are either junior or mid-level roles. There are very few senior level roles in companies when it comes to career progression opportunities. So it's important to understand what the starting point is. We've seen in the region an example of Singapore having taken a lead when it comes to ESG. With a fairly well-developed regulatory framework, we've seen strong government support. We've also seen a fairly large network of ESG professionals. Now, that being said, like we are saying through this conversation, the demand for skills is still quite large. The supply is very short. And I think putting in a structured program to be able to provide learning to citizens, to students, which covers governments, businesses, and universities is important. I'll just take a few seconds to talk about what the structure of such a program might look like. And this is where, organizations like mine, like Coursera, have a large role to play as well. And, the first thing when it comes to putting such a plan in place includes designing the ESG strategy. So how do you, build skills related to designing the ESG strategy? Second is around embedding ESG into an organization's operations. And as an example, there's a course called Business Sustainability in the Circular Economy from the University of London. And we've seen 235% growth in the amount of learning that is happening on this course in Malaysia. So which has been really interesting to see as well. And then, coming back to my point around fundamentals, there's another course called First Steps in Making the Business Case for Sustainability from the University of Colorado. So just a basic fundamental course. And we've seen a lot of adoption of that as well. The third bucket would then be measuring progress to be able to tell the ESG story. So how do you measure the impact that you're having? And then finally, thinking about the future. So making future steps transformational. And there's this, again, a very good example of a course called the 360-degree Corporation Tools for Achieving Corporate Purpose from the University of Toronto. And we are seeing courses like these resonate with learners who are looking to build skills related to ESG as well.
Thanks for that, Raghav. I think it's fascinating that, as you said, a 235% growth in one of these education-related areas that Coursera specializes in, clearly showing market interest. Now, as for one last area that I'd like you to touch upon before I let you go, specific megatrends. We've got climate change, human capital management. They're also key drivers of ESG performance. They're picking up pace. They're going to remain in the consciousness of not just organizations, but also stakeholders for a long time to come. So how can Malaysian businesses prepare for these specific sustainability needs, particularly considering our position as a Southeast Asian hub?
I think it starts with what you said. It's firstly with understanding the ESG megatrends. I think CXOs, board members need to do this. I think to an extent we've seen a lot of it happen as well. But where possibly work is needed is integrating ESG into business strategies, right? How are you thinking about your products, your processes, your overall strategy to be able to integrate this, I think is critical. It next needs to flow into innovation and technology as well. And so as organizations are thinking about, what is the next phase of their growth? What is the next innovation that they're bringing to market? What are some of those examples there? I would say then next, because this is a relatively still a new field for companies in the region, thinking about broader stakeholders in the ecosystem is important. So not look within your organization, but are there competitors, are there peers that one can collaborate with when it comes to ESG? Are there government organizations that one can collaborate with? I think becomes critical. And then, Tamina, like with anything else around driving large organizational change, fostering a culture of ESG becomes very, very important within companies. Because like I said, all of us as working professionals are busy. If the company wants us to build new skills, then we want to know that these skills are relevant for the future of the organization. And so how should business leaders, HR leaders, learning leaders think about fostering a culture related to ESG and building skills related to ESG? That becomes quite important as well.
Clearly. Thank you so much, Raghav. I think it always goes back to what you'd mentioned a little bit earlier, which is about having a full-on strategy before even proceeding with trying to upskill, especially existing labor force, into ESG competencies. Once again, thanks a lot for making time to join us on Niaga Spotlight.
Wonderful. Thank you.